Successful entrepreneurs have long lists of the things they say help them start and run their organizations. But a list of Tae Kwon Do, Hapkido, and Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu? Well, yes, says Benjamin Chen, who credits his skills in those martial arts with helping him successfully build businesses across industrial, enterprise software, cloud, and consumer internet sectors. And he's also a black belt in Tae Kwon Do, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, and Hapkido. He joins us for this Bizgnus Interview. Benjamin, let's start by giving our viewers and listeners a little bit of background about who you are and how you got to where you are today.
Happy to do that, Doug. So my name is Benjamin Chen. I'm a serial entrepreneur, and I've had the good fortune to be involved in a number of startups and fundamentally when the internet became a thing, and then, all those different iterations. So, the quick synopsis of that is, I've been part of 4 companies that have gone public in the United States. I've raised over 500 million in venture capital. And I've had some winners and had some losers. I'm also a martial artist, and I've been training in the martial arts for over 43 years. I have 3 separate black belts, one in Tae Kwon Do, another in Hapkido, and a third, most recently, in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu.
How on earth is Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu a thing of itself?
Well, look, I started Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu in when I in the late 40s. For me, I'm currently 60, and you could argue it's one of the tougher things to try to do, which is to kind of get on the mat, roll with another human being like a wrestler, right? Not so easy to do, and quite frankly, it was something I was afraid of. I would drive by this Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu gym every day to my office. And I thought to myself, I could take a punch, I could stand on the mat, do a kick or two. But in the back of my mind, I always knew, those wrestler guys, they're dangerous.
More so than what you had already learned?
Well, it's just different. Each art gives you a different set of tools and weapons to use in a confrontation. Right. And it's about having the appropriate set of tools at the right time. But, I think the reality of it is, as the UFC has demonstrated, you need fundamentally 2 sets of skills, right? And that is standing and doing punches and kicks, which is fundamentally Thai kickboxing today, and being on the ground and handling essentially on the ground confrontation with another individual. Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu fundamentally represents that, I think, the best today as well.
Well, Benjamin, how has learning these martial arts skills helped you in business from the beginning to now?
So I will say there have been a couple of really interesting tenets that I've realized that I've always been using. But most recently, in my last, assignment, where I had to create a company from nothing in an overseas environment, and there are so many difficult challenges with it, and the product line was extensive, et cetera. At the end of that experience, I realized I treat every decision before me the same. And essentially, what martial arts provides you, I think the first chapter of my book, I really focus on clarity. And I talk about the stillness muscle. I think it's really important in this kind of hectic AI age of instantaneous gratification. A problem comes to you, and it's really important that you see the problem for what it really is, right? You have to ask yourself, is this life or death? Or is it something else? And what is rather than a reacting force to force, what is the appropriate response? And more importantly, is there a response that allows me not to do force to force, but to move around?
How have you applied those specifically in starting up businesses?
So I tell people, one, you need to have, as an entrepreneur, a very clear understanding of what you're trying to achieve, right? And we like to think that, hey, you should focus. But the second part of that, which I call the ready stance, when you get prepared to go into battle, right? And you're on the mat, you're in the sparring session. You think about wanting to have a firm footing on the ground, right? Now, philosophically, that also applies to business and to life, right? I want to be firm. And how do I be firm on the ground? Well, physically, right? I should be in a straight line with both feet planted well. Mentally, my mind should be clear. I should understand the things without my ego being involved. What is it I'm trying to achieve? What product am I trying to make? Who is my customer, right? Who are the people that work for me? What is the culture I'm looking to build? And then there's actually the big piece of it, which many people don't want to do, which I call the homework. Like I'll talk to an entrepreneur and they'll say, I'm really excited about my business. I say, what are you doing? Oh, I've got the super new type of pillow and it's going to get rid of snoring. And I'd say, great, that's interesting. And so, how big is that market? Oh, it's incredible. Every human being needs a pillow. And I would say, well, does every human being snore and have a problem with snoring? Or do they even have a partner that cares about that? Right. And you start realizing, does the entrepreneur truly have the intimate details of that business? Right. That's one of the fundamental questions I would ask as a potential investor. How much do you really know about the business that you want to do, or versus the pomp and circumstance of the excitement of it all, right? The noise, the action of it all. But really, when we get down to brass tacks, do you really know this business?
Benjamin, which came first for you, the expertise in martial arts or starting successfully various businesses?
I don't think it's been one or the other. I've been training for a while, so it's been side by side. I will say this, right? I've had to do a lot of work, a lot of work. I remember one time in one of my startups, and I was a little bit pompous, I guess I would say, as a young kid, on the managing the wheel, so to speak. And I thought I was the king, right? I know everything. I created this product. You guys should sell it. And what ended up happening was I get called into this room after, a couple months of my team trying to sell this product that I created. And the head of marketing, the head of sales, with a cadre of other people are in the room. And they're basically saying to me, Ben, this thing that we've created, it's too complicated. The customer wants to buy a piece of it. They don't want to buy the whole thing. 5% will buy the whole thing. But 60% will buy this piece, this piece. And this was before cloud computing became a thing. And I created this product that included cloud computing, that included databases, that included all these other, load balancing, load testing, all these other features. And I said, you have to sell it as a set. And I couldn't hear, I couldn't see what was in front of me. I couldn't see it, Doug. And I said, no, you guys are wrong. go out and continue and just sell, right? The reality of that was that it wasn't successful, right? And eventually, those leaders had to leave the business, right? It took me time to learn that, you know what? I need to be able to see clearly without my ego what is truly in front of me. And it's one of the most important lessons I ever learned.
And we need you to tell our listeners and viewers, how did you learn that lesson? What can we learn from your experience?
Um, I, I don't know, unfortunately, for many people, I think it's difficult to learn something without actually embracing, feeling it, and being in it, right? But I do believe that, a good story from a wise soul can be helpful. So I would tell people that when you get into these confrontations where you feel your ego is now involved, take a breath, step back, clear your mind, be open. Then you will see what's in front of your binoculars, in front of the camera lens. What is the real thing that's going on? Right? My team was in the trenches, out there on the front lines. Their real life experience was being reflected. It wasn't that they were trying to take something away from me. Right? So I think, this is one of the most difficult parts because you need an ego to start a business for sure. It's so darn difficult. However, at the same time, you need to realize that you can't be reactive with your ego.
And that is perhaps one of the toughest lessons to learn. And you put other lessons in your new book, which is aptly titled Lessons from the Mat, the 12 martial arts principles that will help you succeed in business and in life. If we were to ask you this, because who knows, many of our listeners and viewers have short attention spans these days, what's the most important of those 12 principles for you?
I would tell you that the reality of it is if you do all your homework and you're going down the road, what you're going to find is that the reality is it's not always black and white. You're going to be faced with scenarios, situations that will require you to look deep inside. Whether you're spiritual or not is irrespective. You need to find your gut, your feeling. I call it the gray zone. It's the last chapter in my book. You need to be able to take all of the things that are in front of you, and then as you continue to navigate, eventually you're going to have to almost like a guess, but it's not a guess. It's an internal feeling. It's like, like if you walk down a bad dark alley, right? And you see some, things happening down at the end of the alley. Well, here, your hair comes up. You're kind of like, well, maybe I shouldn't be walking, but you still keep. You should stop. Your body knows, your mind knows, but you can only do that when you are fully present, right? When you're fully present. And so being able to allow yourself to be present, to not be reactive, to look inside, I think that is the most difficult and most important part of the journey.
Benjamin, you undoubtedly have a website, at least for the book, if not for yourself. Could you tell our listeners and viewers what that is?
Sure. It's titled From the Mat Academy.
And here's the question that I try to stump people with. What would you like to add that we have not had a chance to talk about? And it could be anything.
Sure. Look, I think the reason, that someone's a black belt versus a white belt, right? It's not I'm physically better or stronger. It's not that I maybe can learn faster than others. It's fundamentally one thing. A black belt that was initially a white belt wakes up every day and gets back on the mat. That over time compounds. That's just the reality of it. That resilience, that persistence to pursue that goal that you have in your mind every single day. And it's not a finality of it. It's actually the journey, the muscles, the systems, the ability to drive yourself on a daily basis.